Welcome back. This is part 2 of the Evaluating Art chapter. We talked about 2 art criticisms so far. We talked about the formal, we talked about contextual. Now we're going to talk about the expressive. So what is the expressive art criticism about? We are thinking about who made it. Who is she? Who is he? We are looking for personal meanings, deep psychological insight, or human concern, psychoanalysis, and gender studies. When it comes to these expressive art criticism theories, we are really trying to figure out who is this person, what were they like, and so on. If we go back to the Pietà by Titian, some expressive characteristics about this piece is that it was made during his last year of life. And because it was made during this artist's last year of him living, you can say that the painting has this somber reflection of mortality. And you could probably say that the muted colors, the dark composition may perhaps adds on to this effect in terms of this somber quality. If we think about the expressive qualities of the painting we looked at earlier, the simultaneous contrasts, you can say that we can say that it is compared to the artist's ebullient personality. The color palette recalls bright folk costumes of the native Ukraine. And so when it comes to these expressive qualities, it is something that is very personal of the artist. Like you can tell what he or she was feeling. You can tell things like their culture sometimes. And if we look at the expressive qualities of this piece here, the Basquiat painting, it is like a 3-verse song. The artist is African American. If you were to look at his line quality, it feels very intense. He has very strong purpose behind the qualities of his mark making. So that is what the expressive art criticism is all about. Basically, who or how was this person like? And so we're going to shift into a different subject here. What makes art great? You can say that there's a very strong connection with the dollar value and how sought after the work of art is, and the record holding of a painting ever sold is $119.9 million for Edvard Munch's The Scream. It mentions here the dollar values only loosely correlate with historical importance or innovation of a work. So you can say that the subject matter can or it may not reflect how strong a work of art is. We look at The Scream. We are looking at a very expressive work. It's not exactly representational. It is not exactly accurate, and you can say that there is a lot of skill involved, and I can tell you that the painting itself is very creative, and it's very difficult to pull off the same exact style as Edvard Munch. And so this painting, it's not exactly saying anything that is important in terms of the art world. There is no really strong cultural significance, but you wouldn't be able to tell that just from the amount of money people are willing to spend just to own it. So, what makes art great? We can't really say that the painting, the subject matter is really that important. There's something else, and uh, that is more about innovation and who did what first. So, when it comes to a terminology such as a masterpiece, you can say that it has to have at least one element of art criticism to be strongly present. Whenever there is a masterpiece, we usually find them in a museum. Self examination can uncover why a viewer values a work as great. I like to think of a masterpiece as one of the artist's strongest works. Say that there is an exhibition by the artist and that the artist is showing many of his most popular works. I would say that the masterpiece is the greatest example of among all of those works. And so there are different ways to evaluate works of art, and we can do that through writing. And these are the methods to write about art. One is to get the facts about the work. We need the name of the creator, the title, the date, the subject, the medium, size, and location of the work. If it is a reproduction, we have to clarify the original medium and size. And you'll see a lot of that, especially when we look at things like ancient Greek or Roman sculpture. There's a lot of reproductions, and many times they do this to save the original because they don't want anything to happen to it, or they like to just make them for the sake of sales. They just want to make the same thing because people are willing to buy it. And when it comes to writing about art, we need to get the facts about the work, but also we need to analyze the work. We have to think about the parts of the work and how they fit together. We have to think about the formal elements, context, and the artist's input. And the other method to write about art is through evaluating. So we are going to assess the quality or importance of the work in relation to art criticism technique. We like to look for innovation. What is new? Does it move your feelings? We like to talk about a reflection of a time period or maybe a personality. Maybe we like to write about it simply because it is beautiful or challenging to the eye. So now we're going to talk a little bit about censorship. Censorship is the ultimate evaluation, and that is when there is the alteration or removal of works of art from a public view. These are usually carried out because of religious, moral, or political reasons. So when censorship does occur, artists' freedom takes a backseat to values of civil authorities. And what is being said here is that when it comes to artwork, especially when it is viewed in public, you can say that the government has the final say. They can evaluate it and determine whether or not it is good enough to be seen by the public. So censorship is something that has been practiced over history. The Byzantine Empire, these early Christian empire, and there was this iconoclastic controversy of destroying religious images. So during this time in early Christianity, there was rules stating that they are not allowed to make works of art based off of images in the Bible. And you can say that we can ask ourselves, why was this taboo, or why was this illegal in the past? In comparison to what we are seeing today, we see many images that deal with Christianity, but in the past they were not allowed to create these images because what people were saying was people were worshiping the objects, and that they were, worshiping a statue or a painting, and that Christians at the time were not supposed to do that. And of course, a lot of that has changed. You can say that it's not exactly this idea of worshiping the object, the artwork itself, but instead it's more of a reminder. It reminds worshippers to think of Christ, to think of their own religion. So they changed that rule. And censorship was practiced in this work of art here. Maybe some of you recognize it, The Last Judgment by Michelangelo. If you look at the figures, you can see that they are primarily of nude men. When this painting was initially created, Michelangelo painted every figure in the nude, but later popes found out that the people that were entering the church and that they were looking at these images, so they noticed some of them would say it's a little bit too graphic. So what a pope eventually did was hire another artist to paint loincloths over their genitals. So yes, censorship is the ultimate evaluation. So it is usually carried over through the government or the church. Censorship played a big part in Nazi Germany. There was this confiscation of over 16,000 modern art pieces. Actually, artists were banned from working. And what was happening at the time was, you can say that the leader of the Nazi regime, Adolf Hitler, he actually was an artist too. I wouldn't say he was a successful artist, but he too was an artist, but he did not like modern art. He did not like abstract. He did not like non-objective works of art. He was more of a traditional art lover. He only liked things like portraits and paintings that were representational. And that's how influential he was as a leader. He was able to convince the country that this is the kind of art that should be shown here, and not this kind of expressive, abstract art. In a way, he was trying to control people's ability to think outside the box. Another example of censorship was this case here in the United States, Miller versus California in 1973. It mentions that work may only be censored if it is demonstrably obscene to the average person. So if we were to get a room of people, and let's say there's 50 people in the room, if it was offensive to half of the people there, then they would probably censorship. They would probably put it down. So I'm not exactly sure how they would measure that, but you can say that it really depends on the audience again. So when it comes to this artwork, the freedom of individual expression valued is it's not exactly a freedom of expression. It is only freedom that is allowed. So something about artwork as a censorship. If a work benefits from public funds, it may be controversial. In other words, if the government commissioned a work that this money is coming from the people's tax, from the people's tax money, there's going to be a lot of questions to why they would actually fund that work, because in a way it's almost like saying this is the kind of art that we want to see, that they want people to see, and it's going to in a way support a particular idea. So when it comes to artwork, we have to be conscious of these works that are being publicly funded. And if we look at this example here, it looks like a abstract painting. If you notice the garment, the light blue clothing on a woman, maybe if you are familiar with many works of Christianity, you'll often see the Virgin Mary wearing light blue. And if you look at this piece, a lot of abstract shapes, it looks like flowers and looks like rocks. Very expressive expression on the face there. This is called Holy Virgin Mary, 1996, by Chris O'Feely. And so this painting, you're probably wondering, I just heard the title, Holy Virgin Mary. But when I look at the piece, I'm not really sure if that is symbolic of what I'm used to when it comes to a depiction of Mary. And so the artist here, something that you'll notice on the painting itself, there are 3 rocks, or actually 1, 2, looks like 4 rocks. And they are not rocks, they are actually elephant dung. And so when people saw this painting and they realized that there is elephant dung on the piece, they try to censor it, they try to shut it down. And so in 1999, the New York City mayor Giuliani tried to close down the Brooklyn Museum because of this painting. It is very offensive to Roman Catholicism, but at the same time, something about Chris O'Feely, he is from Africa, and that in his culture they actually use elephant dung as one of their more important types of media when it comes to creating art. So is it really offensive? We have to question ourselves. What is the artist really trying to say? Are we evaluating? Are we holding our standards of value higher than others? And so a very interesting piece, a very interesting controversy created by this work of art. And so another thing that I don't have a picture of this. In 2010, there was a nudity controversy on YouTube by the artist Amy Greenfield. She actually posted videos of herself in the nude, and that she was on the beach, and that, if I can recall, I think she was rolling around on the beach. But she would publish her work and say that it is art, and so she's wondering why people are getting offended by that. So I wonder what you would think if you were to see a nude figure on the beach and you were to watch that on YouTube, basically in public for millions of people to possibly watch. Do you feel like that's good? do you feel like that's good for the public, or do you feel like it's fine because it is art? Which side are you on? I'm kind of curious about that. I can tell you that me as a grown up, I have children, and I I would feel a little bit concerned if my son was to watch something like that on YouTube. Yeah. When you're young, you think, yeah, it's fine, but when you get older, you think twice. Maybe it's not so good for kids. So, everyone has their own opinion, of course. Another similar controversy was on Facebook, where there were drawings of models, nude models, being published on the ever popular website, and it was being published by the New York Academy of Art. So this I would feel differently too in comparison to the Amy Greenfield, because their drawings, at least this is this is my opinion, when it comes to art and when it comes to nudity, for some reason, if it's a drawing, it's not really as, it doesn't really carry the same weight as video. So, um, what do you guys think? Do you think that that too is a little bit too offensive, or do you think it's okay? You probably think the Amy Greenfield video is okay too. So, yes, everyone has their own opinion on this. And if we took a look at this example, we are looking at a very large wall mural. Looks like a mixed media piece with photography and some drawing and a little bit of painting. You might see figures of people of different ages, of different social backgrounds. I see a worker on the left side. I see children. I see what appears to be, I'm not, they look like early travelers into the United States. I see people holding up signs. It looks like they're holding up protest signs. I see people holding hammers. It looks a little bit like conflict and protest, if anything. And so this is a painting by Judy Taylor, History of Labor in Maine, 2007. And when this mural was created, it was actually being told to be put down because it's a little bit too political. And in a way, it's showing a little bit of bias towards organized labor. And what organized labor is really about, basically a way for workers to bond together if anything was to be done by these big businesses. So when big businesses saw this painting, they felt like it was an attack against them, and they asked for it to be taken down.